what has happened in 2023 in the specialty coffee industry? I'm going to talk with Raphael Studer, CEO of Algrano, about this. Your Tinder for coffee roasters and coffee producers. Matching. That's what you do. All right. So what is the industry, or where do you belong? They give cash and they take the coffee, but there is actually no strings attached. Once a year, Algrano publishes this market report where they analyze trends, where they forecast what's going to happen and analyze what happened in the past years in the specialty coffee industry. Raphael is here, CEO and co-founder of Algrano. How are you doing?
Thanks, very well. Thanks for having me.
Now, once a year you publish this report. How much work goes into a 60 pages strong paper?
Yeah, usually when the report is published, we already start working on the next one. So it's a tremendous amount of work, especially by our editor, Luisa. And we outsource the report every year to a different person, to a different industry thinker. And she's in charge of it.
There are many chapters here, but there are, let's say, 5 to 6 main topics you discuss. It's about the build-up to 2023, what has happened in the last year. So there's inflation. You call it the big squeeze in chapter number 3. What are challenges and solutions for smaller roasteries and for bigger roasteries, but mostly in the specialty coffee industry. And there are trends. But when I read it, the tonality, I really liked the tonality because it was pretty neutral in the sense that I wasn't really surprised. And I think it's a good thing if it's back to basics, because everything you mentioned wasn't a big surprise to me. It just told me again what is important in the coffee industry. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I share your opinion and I share your reasoning. For me, this report is very much to my heart because it's actually written for the coffee producers. The idea of this report is to provide information about roasting trends, specialty market trends in Europe and the US to coffee roasters in Eastern Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And this, as you mentioned, these trends for you, maybe they are, you observe them in your daily work, for you they're normal, but it's nice to see that you share them with hundreds of other roasters that participated in this research, and that basically this is, amplified and shared with coffee producers.
So you interviewed more than 100 roasters, and they gave numbers and they gave ideas and they told about their feelings about trends. But now you're going to share this not only with the roasting world, but also with producers. And there's some really, really important things here, because one of the things you said or you mentioned in the report is that with regards to coffee taste, things go back to normal. The coffee tastes more like coffee again.
Yeah, and it's in clear correlation with pricing, so inflation. We see coffee, especially specialty coffees, have really reached high prices in the last 2 years. And this starts, to make roasters question, how does my menu look like? Are my customers really appreciating what I'm roasting?
So back from very fancy taste profiles, let's say high 80s, 90 points coffees with extended fermentations. Would you see a tipping point that, let's say, the very fermenty, extended fermentation coffees, they're starting to drop in volume?
Yeah, I think they will exist in the future as well.
Yeah, and they have a place as well.
They have a place as well, but they will not become the mainstream. And that's what we see, yes. In the report, roasters tell us that coffee qualities are reducing, especially when we're talking about blend components. So Brazil, for instance, plays a big part. And that's, as you're saying, it's not a bad thing. It's going back to where we were.
So Brazil is becoming more important again for specialty coffee roasters. So when you started 10 years ago, what the idea was in your head, let's say 10 years ago, your focus was first on Brazil because you started in Brazil. So, and then it increased. So now you work with 18 different origins. But Brazil, again, is becoming more important for you because roasters you work with, this specific taste profile, or let's say a more chocolatey, nutty, not so super extreme profile is becoming more important again.
Yes, that's correct. And I think there's something else to it, not just the taste profile. I think Brazil excels really in efficient, consistent production of specialty coffees. And that's what roasters also are looking for. That's what we learn in the report.
So you say roasters are looking or listening more to their own market now?
That's correct. I think it forces us to give up part of our naivety, that we were just able to sell whatever we liked cupping.
Okay.
And we are going to a more user-centric approach in the specialty coffee roasting industry.
So design thinking in specialty coffee industry.
Yeah, I hope so.
Now.
I think that's the winning strategy, yes.
So you mentioned something you know from statistics, because your background as well is in, you like numbers. So it's specialty coffee started, let's say, here, went there, and now it's more kind of a sensory correction to the mean.
Yes.
But you say not mean, but it's two meanings.
Yeah, that's how I interpret the report, exactly.
Right.
When we started 10 years ago, you would buy a specialty coffee from Brazil at 80, 82 points. It became normal that those points would increase to 85.
Mm-hmm.
And basically now we are seeing that we are, a normalization, or as you're saying, we're going back to the mean, which means back to this 80, 82 points, which is specialty coffee by its definition. By definition. And that's, for me, also back to the meaning, because we start thinking about not just the differentiation through quality, but actually a differentiation through our values, our stories.
Who? The roasters or the producers?
The roasters have to first, but this reflects it is of course given down the chain upstream to the producers.
So what you're saying is that storytelling is becoming even more important in the future, because coffee tastes in general, they're going to align a bit and become, let's say, a bit less fancy.
Yes, we were building our industry on providing new stuff. Mm-hmm. This was our differentiation. What we are learning now is that this new stuff is, we have seen it all already. Mm-hmm. So basically we need to get back to our roots, and our roots in the specialty coffee industry is we're good at telling stories, creating stories. And that's basically also what one of the trends is. Our roasters are telling one of the trends is storytelling.
So creating value by telling personal stories that kind of create, let's say, an imaginative proximity. And that needs a lot of sensitivity, but also transparency. And we need to prove it in the future.
Correct.
And by proving, so we talked a lot about certification, but we also talked a lot about the new regulations from the European Union and others. And there are many more in the pipeline in the coming years. The EUDR, the deforestation regulation, there's a green claims initiative, and there will be more. So it's not so easy for smaller companies to say, we do everything better or we do it differently, so we don't need a certification. Certifications, they may change or they may become more important to smaller companies as well, right?
Yeah, that's also how I see it. I think we are in the pole position in the specialty industry. We have these direct connections to coffee producers. We have the ability to tell our stories. And we have a wish to align more to our users' demands. So basically, if all these regulations are happening, it's because consumers want these regulations. They want transparent supply chains. They want sustainable agricultural practices. And that's basically where the specialty industry can really be a driving force. But you're right, we need to be able to prove our efforts. And certifications will play there a big role. It's also something we see in the report. 30% of the answers say that they're buying more certified coffees than a year ago.
Already now. Do they pay more as well when it comes to price? Do we as roasters?
Yes, so I think the willingness to pay always needs to align with sustainability initiatives. It's impossible to think of pushing down new regulations to coffee producers without paying for them. We cannot expect a product to have more value but not paying for that value. And this is something we're still, sometimes shocked about, especially on the consumer side, that it's just an expectation to have a label. It's just an expectation, but there is no willingness to pay for it. And that's certainly something that needs to change, because at the end of the day, these sustainability efforts happen in the fields. And in the fields, we also know that, the prices are the lowest. So,
and we can rest assured that in the future, one day, every sustainability initiative will be third-party verified at one point, because there is no room for, let's say, not a big room for maneuver to go around certifications. It will come down to a point that everyone really has to prove, every roaster has to prove what we are doing.
Yeah, and the question is this happening in the old-fashioned way, through audits? Is it happening through new digital methods? That time will show, but for sure there will be third-party verification. Yeah.
So looking back at last year, you said, so we talked about price, taste, fermentations, but also the, let's say, storytelling, and maybe it will affect also roasting businesses, how they're going to tell stories, because they become even more important, which is good, but at the same time it's also always a bit of a risk if we tell more than it really is. Do we sugarcoat something, or do we just blow up something and it's just not true? So there must be an increased sensitivity to stories. And at the same time last year there were a lot of consolidations in the specialty coffee industry. Do you feel part of the industry? So what is the industry, or where do you belong?
Yeah, so Algrano, the company I co-founded, is in the green coffee business. We are a platform where coffee roasters and producers connect and trade directly. This means we are concerned about the green coffee.
So you are
industry.
Not a coffee trader.
I think this is really important, exactly. For us, this differentiation of Algrano not being a coffee trader was from the day on we founded Algrano, very, very important. The main difference is a coffee trader owns coffee, holds coffee on his books, has a position without having a buyer, or has a buyer but does not yet have the coffee. So these open positions, as we call them, Algrano does not have them, because we trade online between the roaster and the producers immediately.
You're Tinder for coffee roasters and coffee producers.
Correct, with services attached to it, which is, we organize also the restaurant.
Matching. That's what you do. All right. So when it comes to consolidation now, I mean, we talk a lot about trading coffees and we talk about consolidation. We see a lot of consolidation in the trading industry, but you say we have to look more closely to consolidation, what it actually means, because consolidation is only the effect of a process that lies deeper.
Yes.
Which is speculation.
Yes, that's how I look at it. For me, it's very clear that consolidation is the result of an impact. And the impact in that sense is that we have coffee trading, the business model, which is under pressure. We have seen a lot of companies in 2023 having to sell to bigger players. Sustainable Harvest is one case. We have seen other companies stopping their trading activities, catalyst trading, or even filing for bankruptcy, like Mercon.
Which only recently happened.
Which happened or was made public on the 6th of December, exactly.
And Mercon is not a small one. Mercon belongs to the top 5-6.
Yeah, they're really
worldwide.
big. They're some of the biggest exporters from Nicaragua, from Central America. So they have origin operations, importing offices. They are one of the big names. Yeah.
And what has happened?
In short, it's that one of those coffee traders has taken a position and has either hedged that position on the financial market or had to cover it later on, and basically prices played against them. But most importantly, they didn't get the willingness from the banks to support them anymore. The main reason there is since 2022, in the last 12 months, we have seen interest rates rising from 0.3% to 4.3%. There are other alternatives than financing coffees to make money, and banks start to pull out of financing coffee traders. And this is basically the main reason why that business model, which was based on cheap money, is coming under pressure.
What does this mean for producers? Because CISA was an affiliate of Mercon in Nicaragua, and many producers sold to CISA. So what happens to this coffee and what happens to these producers?
Yeah, this is a very interesting question, and that's the next result of the consolidation, basically. So we have we have speculation, we have bankruptcy, we have really, in the banking industry, we would call it a financial crisis. We have a trading crisis in coffee. That's a fact. And now consolidation happens because roasters and producers start pulling to the remaining actors. And that means, of course, that as a result of that, there is less degrees of freedom when it comes to selling your coffee as a producer, buying your coffee as a roaster, and less degrees of freedom means less competition, means worse pricing for producers.
And it's also the golden hour of coyotes again.
That's
right?
the point.
These are the people that are there when no one else is there. They give cash and they take the coffee, but there is actually no strings attached. But these days we know there should be some strings attached because only selling coffee doesn't really help long term.
Exactly.
So this is one kind of consolidation that we see in the industry, but we also have seen another type of consolidation, like a big one buys a small one. So we have seen it in beer in the early 2000s. We've seen it in specialty roasting companies in the 2010s. We've seen it with Intelligentsia and Stammtown that have been bought by Jab Group, of the German Jab Group, Johann Benckiser. And then there is Blue Bottle that was sold to Nestle. And there are some other mergers. There was another one that caused quite some emotions earlier this year. That was when Interamerican bought Nordic Approach. That is a different type of consolidation.
Yes, this is a company buying access to a market they haven't been present in. And that has always happened, as you're mentioning. I don't think that should worry us, or I think it's more an emotional worry that many specialty roasters had to see another independent player going to bed with a big multinational.
And this is not really attractive to you, right? Because you miss some colorful colors.
Yeah, I think why we started Algrano is really because we saw a lot of independent entrepreneurs on both sides of the chain, in the producing countries as well as in the roasting countries. And why we founded Algrano is we want to amplify those independent entrepreneurs to do successful business together, to create successful products together. And that's what we stand for. And for this, we need independent actors in between.
So for next year, Raphael, what are your main concerns and main hopes? Let's start with the concerns that we can end on a high note, on the hopes.
My concerns are that coffee producers may not adapt as quickly as we see to these new trends that are clearly stated in this report.
Because trees need some time to grow.
Correctly, coffee producers were investing in different varieties in the past because everybody wanted to have geisha. Then they started to invest in post-harvesting process because everybody wanted fermented coffee. Now we are learning these were maybe short-term waves. And the long-term trend is going into efficient, consistent quality production. And that needs investment, that needs heavy investment from the producers. And I hope that producers adapt to this to keep competitive in the market. That's my main concern, that this message is really brought to the fields and also put in place. My hope for 2024 is that these small independent entrepreneurs unite and really see themselves as a movement, because together we are really important in this industry and big, and we have a voice. And I hope that this independent voice finds a common sense.
Because specialty coffee is still growing. So it's still cutting into the market share of, let's say, more commercial coffee.
This is the good news of this report. The majority of the respondents are reporting that their business grew in the last 12 months, even though all these adverse evolutions like high interest rates, inflation, etc.
These are some ideas and some findings from Algrano's market report. You can find it online. It's in English, it's in Spanish, and it's in Portuguese. And that says a lot about the destination of this report. Yes, it's for roasters, but as well, or even more, it's for producers, that they have access to the latest developments on the roasting side. Because change happens really fast on this side of the coffee chain, but change is much slower where coffee actually comes from. If you're interested and have more questions about the work of Algrano, the report, or Raphael, you find all the links in the notes below the video. Thanks for watching.